Have you ever believed that the smallest twist of fate could change a person's life forever? Imagine walking out of a cafe after a long day, thinking nothing extraordinary could possibly happen to you, only to find yourself holding the door for someone who would unknowingly rewrite your story. That's exactly what happened here, and you're not going to want to miss how it unfolds. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now, because trust me, this is one of those stories that will stay with you long after it ends. She was tired. That was the simplest way to put it. Clara, a single mom of a 7-year-old boy, had been juggling 2 jobs, paying off overdue bills, and making sure her son never felt the absence of a father in his little world. Her days started before sunrise and often ended with her collapsing on a worn-out couch in her tiny apartment. Tonight was no different. Except she had promised her best friend that she would at least try to do something for herself for once. So here she was, at a restaurant she couldn't really afford, sitting across from a man who seemed more interested in his reflection in the wine glass than in her. It was supposed to be a blind date. Her friend had insisted, "You need to get out there, Clara, you can't just work and raise Tommy forever." Clara had smiled politely, but in her heart she knew this wasn't her world anymore. Still, she had shown up. And the man across from her, well, he had spent the last 20 minutes talking about his car, his investments, and his ex-girlfriend's supposed mistakes. Clara sat quietly, sipping water, glancing at the clock on the wall, her mind drifting back to whether she had packed Tommy's lunch for school tomorrow. Finally, she decided enough was enough. Clara excused herself, stood up, and prepared to leave when she noticed a man at the next table. He was dressed neatly but not overly flashy, sitting alone, his eyes distant as if he was carrying the weight of something no one could see. And yet, in the moment their eyes met, something strange flickered, something gentle, almost vulnerable. Clara didn't think much of it, she had no time for strangers or their mysteries. She just wanted to leave this awkward night behind. Outside, the night air was cool, and she wrapped her thin coat tighter around her. She thought the evening was done, but then, the sound of hurried footsteps caught her attention. It was him, the man from the next table. He walked out just as the rude blind date guy stormed past, muttering into his phone. Clara gave a small laugh at the ridiculousness of it all, and without meaning to, she caught the stranger's eye again. "You too?" she asked lightly, nodding toward the door as if to ask if he had just escaped something equally miserable. He chuckled, and for the first time in what felt like years, Clara saw someone laugh not at her, but with her. "Something like that," he said. His voice was calm, steady, but there was an undertone of loneliness hidden behind it. What Clara didn't know, and what you, listening right now, are about to discover, is that this man wasn't just anyone. His name was Daniel Whitford, a CEO of a company so large that headlines often carried his name, though most people would never imagine the man behind the suits and the boardrooms. Daniel was wealthy beyond imagination, but that wealth had cost him something deeper. Nights like this one reminded him of it, reminded him of the silence that filled his penthouse apartment when he returned home, of the dinners eaten alone, of the love he had never quite found despite all the people who surrounded him. Daniel hadn't planned on noticing Clara, but the way she had carried herself, quiet yet strong, had struck him. He had watched her sit through that insufferable date, not once trying to prove herself or boast, but simply existing with dignity. It was rare, refreshing. And when she had laughed outside, so genuine, it had pulled him toward her like gravity itself. Clara, of course, had no idea who he was. To her, he was just a stranger with kind eyes who had also left a bad situation behind. They stood there for a while, exchanging a few words, the city buzzing around them, and though neither admitted it, both felt that peculiar spark, like the beginning of something neither of them had been searching for but desperately needed. She soon checked the time, realizing she had to catch the bus. Tommy would be asleep by now, but she couldn't be late in case he woke up. Daniel noticed her slight panic and offered, "Can I walk you to the stop?" Clara hesitated, life had taught her not to trust easily. But there was something about his tone that didn't feel threatening, something almost protective. She nodded, and together they walked under the streetlights, two strangers bound by an invisible thread. Along the way, Clara found herself telling him little things, about how she worked at the diner, about her son's love for comic books, about how she didn't usually do blind dates but her friend had insisted. Daniel listened, really listened, something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Most people either pitied her or judged her, but he didn't do either. He asked questions that showed genuine interest, and when she spoke, his eyes softened as though every word mattered. What she didn't know was that Daniel felt something shifting inside him too. For years, he had been surrounded by people who wanted something from him, his money, his power, his influence. Rarely did anyone care about who he really was, the man behind the fortune. But here was Clara, completely unaware of his identity, speaking to him like he was just a regular guy walking her to a bus stop. And in that moment, that's exactly who he wanted to be. When the bus arrived, Clara smiled politely and thanked him. "It was nice talking to you," she said, and for her, that was enough. She climbed on, waved briefly from the window, and was gone. Daniel stood there long after the bus disappeared into the night, hands in his pockets, wondering why it felt like he had just let something precious slip away. He didn't even know her last name. But he knew one thing for certain, he wanted to see her again. And that was the beginning. A poor single mom, just trying to survive another day, unknowingly walked out of a bad blind date and straight into the life of a lonely CEO. Neither of them knew how much their worlds were about to change. So if you're curious about what happens next, how their paths cross again, what obstacles stand in their way, and whether two people from completely different worlds can find love in the most unexpected of places, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because Chapter 2 is going to take you even deeper into this incredible journey. Daniel couldn't shake the image of Clara's smile as the bus pulled away. For a man who could pick up the phone and summon anyone to his side, he suddenly found himself restless, realizing he had no way of finding her again. Yet fate has its strange ways. A week later, he walked into a small corner diner, one he had never noticed before, and there she was, balancing trays with tired grace, her hair tied back, her laugh lighting up the room as she spoke kindly to a group of regulars. She didn't notice him at first, and Daniel simply sat there, watching in quiet amazement. For the first time in years, he ordered coffee not because he needed it, but because he wanted a reason to stay. When their eyes met again, Clara froze in surprise, then smiled nervously, unsure why the stranger from that night had appeared in her world again. Over the next weeks, he kept coming back. Sometimes he helped her carry trays when the diner was busy, sometimes he simply listened as she spoke about Tommy or her dreams of a better life. Slowly, she began to let her guard down. Daniel, in turn, felt himself drawn into a life richer than all his boardroom deals combined. But secrets don't stay buried forever. Clara still didn't know who he really was, or how different their worlds were. And that's where the Real story begins. If you want to know how love battles against secrets and class divides, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel right now, because what comes next will leave your heart racing.